Ever find yourself wondering, like, if that extra hour of sleep really makes a difference? You
Yeah,
know,
it will.
or maybe like how that second cup of coffee actually affects your productivity.
You've all been there.
It's like we're always trying to figure out the right dose of things in our lives.
Yeah, yeah.
But getting a clear answer, that's that's way harder than it seems. So many factors, right?
Absolutely. I mean, just think about it. Everything from our genes to like what we had for breakfast can totally muddy the waters. It's a real challenge to figure out.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, I think. You send over this paper. It's called Advancing Causal Inference, a non-parametric approach to aid and CATE estimation with continuous treatments
Oh, yeah. Oh,
by
yeah.
Hugo Gobato Soto
Yeah.
and Francisco Lozano Neto. And it's like diving headfirst into this whole world of continuous effects.
It really does. It sounds a little intimidating, the title, but I promise the payoff is huge. Imagine like personalizing medicine dosages or fine-tuning, public policy based on what really works, not just like guesswork. That's what this kind of research can do.
Okay, sign me up for that. But before we get too deep in the weeds, can we make sure everyone's on the same page? This paper's got acronyms like 8E and KEY flying around. Can you decode those for us?
Definitely. So 8EE, that's average treatment effects. Imagine there's like a new allergy medication, and we want to know how much it reduces symptoms, but like on average, for everyone taking it, that's your ADE, the overall effectiveness kind of thing.
So it's not just A if it works, but like how well it works on average for everyone.
Exactly. Now, CATE, that's where it gets really cool. CATE, conditional average treatment effect. It's saying that the effect of a treatment, it can totally vary depending on the person.
Okay.
Your age, genetics, other meds you're on, it all matters.
So Kate is like, hey, this allergy med might reduce symptoms by 20% on average, but for you, maybe it's more like 10% or 30% because of who you are.
Exactly. It's personalized,
That's wild. Okay, so
Yeah.
where does this paper fit into all this?
So a lot of research, it focuses on what we call binary treatments. It's either on or off. You get the medicine or you don't. You're exposed to something or you aren't. But this paper, this is about the real world. Continuous treatments.
So like dosage, the number of hours you sleep.
Yeah, yeah. Or how much exercise you get. Stuff like that, not just an on-off switch.
Gotcha, gotcha. And that's got to be way harder to figure out.
It is. It gets really tricky because the usual ways of looking at this stuff, they often assume the effect is linear.
Linear meaning like
Yeah.
each extra hour of sleep gives you the same benefit, or every milligram of a medication has the same impact no matter what.
Exactly. But I think we both know from experience, it's rarely that simple.
Right, like that extra hour of sleep, sometimes it's amazing, sometimes not so much.
Exactly. And that's what makes this research so interesting. They're challenging that linear idea. They've got this new model, PESPART. It's designed to be much more flexible.
Okay, so it can handle those weird curves where maybe that first hour of sleep is key, but the 8th hour, not so much.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, so how did they like test this IPS-BART model? What did they actually DO?
So to really test it, they use these things called data generating processes. We can just call them DGPs.
DGPs, okay.
Think of them like recipe books for different scenarios.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these recipe books.
So each DGP, it like outlines a specific relationship between the treatment and whatever outcome they want to look at. And then all those other factors, the covariates
Right.
that can mess things up.
So they're like creating these little scenarios to see if this part can handle it.
Exactly. They made 9 different ones. Each one's got its own quirks, Makes it tough for the model.
9 obstacle courses for Vespart to run. Okay, did they like try it with different runners too? Different amounts of data.
Good point. Yeah, they changed the sample size each time. 100 data points, then 250, then 500. To see how PESPART did as the data increased.
Because more data is usually better, right? For reliable results.
For sure. And get this, they ran each scenario 100 times, just to be extra sure.
Thorough. So what happened? What'd they find? Was this thing the causal inference all-star?
Well, it wasn't really about one winner, which is actually good for researchers. But SPART, it did really well when the relationship was super nonlinear.
So, like my sleep thing again.
Yeah.
That first hour's magic, but by hour 8, it's like pointless.
Exactly. Those situations, the linear assumption, totally misleading. PySpart was way better, gave a much clearer picture.
That's so cool. So it wasn't always the best, though, sounds like.
True. Sometimes the relationship was simpler, more straightforward, and those basic models, they did fine.
So different tools for different jobs kind of thing.
Exactly. And that is a key takeaway. gotta choose the right tool. Suspect it's nonlinear, like sleep, caffeine, PS BART, all the way. But if it's more straightforward, a simple model might do the trick. No need to overcomplicate.
Love it. Okay, so how does this actually play out in the real world, though? What kind of impact are we talking?
Oh man, the potential is huge. Imagine doctors figuring out the perfect drug dose for you, not just the average person.
Yeah.
Or policymakers actually designing programs that work because they get it, the complexities.
So it's moving away from those one-size-fits-all approaches toward like precision,
Yeah,
personalized stuff.
exactly. And it goes way beyond medicine and policy, too.
Yeah.
Education, finance, environmental science, anywhere knowing these continuous effects matters.
This is blowing my mind. What was the most mind-blowing part for you
Yeah.
of this whole thing?
Honestly, how this research deals with uncertainty.
Okay, hold up a sec. Why is uncertainty such a big deal here?
Because, come on, in the real world, we can never be 100% sure about anything. There's always going to be some wiggle room in our data, in what we find.
Right.
So it's not enough to be like, this is the effect, We got to know how confident we are in that.
So it's more like we're pretty sure this is the effect, give or take.
Yes, and that's what's cool about PROS. It doesn't just give you one number. It gives you a whole range so researchers can see the uncertainty.
So they can say we're like 95% sure the effect is somewhere in here.
Yep. It's about being honest, about what we don't know, which helps us make better decisions in the end.
It makes a ton of sense. This feels like we're just scratching the surface, though. They even said so, right? Future applications and all that.
Yeah. They mentioned treatments that, change over time.
Ooh, interesting. So instead of assuming, like, the treatment's always the same, we can see how the effect might change as time goes on.
You got it.
Wow. Okay, think about, like, a weight loss program. Maybe it works great at first, but then...
Exactly. Or environmental regulations. The impact might shift over time.
It's like opening up a whole new dimension of understanding. But before we go too far down that road, you mentioned earlier that the paper looked at how CliffSpart's performance changed with different sample sizes, like how much data they fed it, what they find there.
It's kind of like you'd expect, actually. More is usually better. Bigger sample size, more reliable the results. And that was true for SPART too. More data, the model got more accurate, especially with those super complex relationships, the nonlinear ones.
Makes sense. More data points, you get a clearer picture.
Right. But here's the interesting thing. There were a few cases, even with smaller samples, BART still did pretty well.
So even with limited data, it can be useful. That's good news.
It is. It shows how strong these non-parametric approaches can be. More flexible, They can handle it when you don't have those massive data sets everyone wants.
BART's like that friend who can make the most of any situation. Adaptable.
Love it. And it makes you think, right? There are tons of areas where researchers, they're stuck with limited data. Maybe it's expensive to get more, or the thing they're studying is just rare. But this shows, even then, we can still learn a lot about these continuous effects.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening,
Yeah.
seriously. We went from, like, wondering about an extra hour of sleep to the cutting edge of this whole causal inference thing.
It's wild.
And SPART.
Yeah.
Don't forget PISPART.
And the coolest part is this is just the beginning. Imagine doctors tailoring treatments just for you, not just based on, what works for most people.
Right.
Or policymakers, they could design programs that actually get the results they want because they understand how it all really works.
A whole new era of, personalized everything. It's kind of exciting.
Totally.
So, listener, what about you? What questions do you have after this? Any doses in your own life you're wondering about? Let us know. What could this kind of analysis change? Until next time, keep exploring and keep asking those what-if questions. And as always, keep diving deep.